afternoon. My name is Michael Vasquez. I'll be talking about disability and health, citizenship, disability, voting rights, and society role. Disability in mental asylums. People labeled as mentally ill were denied rights like voting, property control, and legal independence because they were seen as incapable and thought, therefore, unfit for citizenship. They were often described as dependent or even dangerous, which justified their confinement in asylums and exclusion from society. Although many had limited power, some reformers and patients advocated for better treatment and rights. These examples show that early Americans believed an ideal citizenship should be rational, self-controlled, and independent. Voting and legal recognition for people with mental disabilities gradually came about around the 20th century. Women and disability. Women were denied voting rights and often restricted in property ownership and political participation because they were viewed as emotionally weak and less rational. These ideas framed them as unfit for full citizenship. Women resisted through activism, especially in the suffrage movement, commanding equal rights and participation. This shows the ideal citizen and defined as male, independent, and rational. Women gained voting rights around the 1920s. African Americans and disability. African Americans were denied voting rights, education, property protections, and legal equality, and were falsely described as inferior or dangerous to justify exclusion. These ideas were labeled them as unfit citizens, especially during slavery and Jim Crow. Despite these, African Americans resisted through abolition, activism, and civil rights efforts, asserting their rights and humanity. This reveals that the ideal citizen was tied to whiteness and perceived intellectual fitness. Black men were granted voting rights with the 15th Amendment. Native Americans were denied citizenship, voting rights, land control, and freedom of movement, and were described as uncivilized in the need of assimilation. This American society, unless they were adopted white cultural norms, many resisted by maintaining their tradition and advocating for sovereignty and rights. These examples show that the ideal citizen was expected to be culturally Americanized, which was basically just turned white. As you can see, this beautiful young man with a whole bunch of culture, and then boom, just comb over. Yep. Native Americans were granted citizenship through the Indian Citizenship Act, through voting rights, were restricted in practice for years after. All right. And lastly, thank you for listening.